I'm JJ Ramberg, and welcome to Your Business, where we give you tips and advice to help your business grow. The fight over Arizona's controversial immigration law has taken a dramatic turn. The federal government is now suing the state, and Arizona's governor says she's ready to defend the law that's supposed to take effect at the end of the month. The law is still the subject of much debate, especially among the state's small business owners. This week, we find out how the impending crackdown on illegal immigrants could impact small business.
Fronteras, sin fronteras.
The state of Arizona has become a flashpoint in the national debate over what to do about illegal immigrants.
Both sides of the debate over illegal immigration are taking to the streets in Arizona.
On April 23rd, when Governor Jan Brewer signed state law SB 1070, she set off a countrywide tempest over the bill's requirement that every state official take responsibility for identifying and arresting illegal immigrants.
I firmly believe it represents what's best for Arizona.
The law will take effect on July 29th unless a pending federal lawsuit interferes.
The controversy is really about a conflict between bad law and the need for the rule of law.
Sheridan Bailey, owner of Phoenix-based Iron Co., an iron fabrication company, says the law will stymie economic growth for many businesses across the state.
We can't have the economy we want without law. We can't be lawless. At the same time, we have unrealistic and destructive provisions in laws that should be helping the country grow economically and do not.
What does it take to wake America up? This has been the law of the land. Arizona didn't make illegal. It was actually already illegal.
Russell Pierce is the state senator who wrote SB 1070. He served 23 years in the Maricopa Sheriff's Department before his election to the Arizona state legislature. He says law enforcement is the state's top concern.
What people ought to understand about 1070 is it's simply the law of the land, and we're a nation of laws. It doesn't create any new laws.
In Bailey's case, this law gets personal, since his livelihood depends on finding labor necessary to fulfill his contract.
No way around it. A plus B equals C. There aren't enough workers to do all the job, despite what proponents of enforcement-only solutions say. There just aren't enough.
Bailey isn't talking about untrained manual labor. He's talking about highly skilled welders and fitters.
What hurt my business is during the time that the economy was robust, I couldn't get enough workers to be efficient. So, when you put people on overtime, their productivity goes off. And so we didn't do as well as we should have.
Pierce knows Bailey and doesn't see a need to give permission for additional work permits for guest workers.
They have a system. He wants to circumvent it because he wants cheap labor. And he can say what he wants, but that's what it amounts to. Because otherwise there's 30 million Americans out of work. You don't think they would take that job if it's so good and so generous as he says?
Not only no, but hell no. First of all, I don't agree with exploiting people and paying them less than a living wage. They deserve to get whatever the market will bear. It's hotter than a pistol out here. You've got to be able to withstand those conditions, and most Americans aren't hungry enough to be willing to do it.
Pierce prefers to see the free market solve any labor shortage.
There's never a job an American won't do. We have a free market system. You pay what the market requires, and it all balances out.
Pierce says the increased enforcement will actually improve the business climate by leveling the playing field for all employers.
So what you have is the business guy that follows the law. He has to compete against the guy who doesn't follow the law, who has a minimum of probably a 30% advantage over the honest business employer.
Bailey, however, says the free market nearly put him out of business.
As we began to see a diminishing labor and management resource, tough to get project managers, welders, fitters, because there are not enough to go around, realize we got to compete for that resource.
Listen to what he's saying. I don't hire illegal aliens, but if they stop me from hiring illegal aliens, I'll go out of business. It's absolutely hypocrisy, and it's simply not true.
While the rest of the nation watches as the battle in Arizona rages, several of the major cities in California have declared an economic boycott of Arizona.
We're also introducing on Tuesday a resolution that essentially condemns the actions of the state of Arizona and calls for a boycott of the state.
Pierce says he's been asked for legislative advice by lawmakers from 18 states seeking to initiate similar laws. Meanwhile, Bailey fears this law will create a business climate where even legal immigrants will flee the state, and the impact will make a bad economy even worse.
The way the economic system works is a dollar spent at a corner grocery store works its way through the economy 4, 5, 6, 7 times before it, you can lose track of where it came from.
We should point out that some small business owners in Arizona do in fact favor the new law, but for or against it, many are already feeling its impact. Let's turn to this week's board of directors to talk a little bit more about it. Hector Barreto is the chairman of the Latino Coalition and the founder and president of Barreto Associates. He served as the head of the Small Business Administration under President George W. Bush. Alfred Edmond is the editor-in-chief of blackenterprise.com, and you can find coverage of the immigration debate in this month's magazine. And Gene Marks joins us again. He's president of the Marks Group and author of the new book, In God We Trust, Everyone Else Pays Cash, Simple Lessons from Smart Business Owners. Great to see all of you. Thanks so much for joining us.
JJ.
Hector, I'd like to start out with you. What have you heard from small business owners in Arizona? How worried are they about this law?
Well, they're very worried. We were talking to some of our colleagues at the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and they let us know there's 50,000 Hispanic businesses in the state of Arizona. And the way they described what's going on in Arizona right now is the perfect storm. They said, look, we were in trouble before all this started happening. We got really hit hard in our construction, in our mortgage industry, tourism. Unemployment has been tracking high. So they had a lot of problems before this. This is the worst thing at the worst time for them. And they really hope that we can come up with some solutions.
But Hector, what is it exactly that they're worried about? Are they worried about shortages of labor? Are they worried about the boycotts? How is this going to specifically affect their businesses?
Well, it's a combination of a lot of things. One of the things that they said is happening is that there's now a stigma about doing business with Arizona. There's a perception, and they're really concerned about that. There's some anecdotal examples where some people are losing contracts. Not that they did anything wrong. It's just that people they were doing business with before are now saying, you know what, this is a little too hot. We'd rather work with somebody else. So there's a lot of issues there. I mean, what we should be doing is surrounding those small businesses with the tools that they need to succeed. A lot of what's going on right now is a distraction for them.
So let's just say the lawsuit is successful, the federal lawsuit is successful, the law doesn't go into effect. How long is the tail of this stigma?
Well, one of the things that they explained to us is this isn't the first, law. There's been a number of things that have been putting in place, putting more pressure on small businesses to actually be that enforcement arm, to kind of be the police officer, if you will. And they don't want to have any part of that. They believe that the government should fulfill its responsibilities. They should, secure the border, enforce immigration laws, do something about, having a total solution around immigration. And a lot of the stuff that they're seeing doesn't really contribute to that.
I want to bring in the panel here on the set too. Alfred, you covered this in this month's magazine. One of the things that we talked about in the piece is they're saying illegal immigrants are getting paid less. And so actually we need to level the playing field. Everyone needs to be legal, get paid the same amount, and then it's better for everybody out there.
Well, what I thought was interesting about the segment is that the business person, who I think has the most credibility in this, is being told by the non-business person how things work in terms of access to labor, cost of labor, cost of the skill sets. And I believe in erring on the side of the business owner who's on the ground that has to run that company, with all due respect to the politician and the former sheriff. It is absolutely wrong-headed to have small businesses being the lead of enforcing any type of law having to do with what might be criminal or illegal. They're not equipped to do it, they're not prepared to do it, and it's not what they're created to do. And when you think of boycotts, it's not just the formal boycotts, and we talk about in Black Enterprise how, for example, Alpha Fraternity moved their convention to Las Vegas, so you got the lost convention business, but it's really the other kinds of things that are not boycotts. It's just people using this as their tiebreaker. I can do business in Arizona, or I can do business elsewhere. all things being equal, I'll do it elsewhere because this is kind of a tiebreaker. And that, I think, is going to have a longer tail than the kind of formal boycotts that we see.
Right. That said, there are, in fact, some business owners who support this.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's good sides and there's bad sides for a business owner if you're operating in Arizona. I mean, on the bad side, what Alfred said is completely right. The added bureaucracy is very tough, you know, and trying to get customers out of the state, they don't want to do business with you because you're in the state of, I mean, that's horrible, you know. On the good side, it does, like the politician was saying, it does level the playing field as well. So, you know, I myself have clients that are in the landscaping business, and, you know, guys know that their competitors are hiring illegal people and paying them less or taking them in. Not that this guy is doing that, but it happens. And so my clients sometimes are forced to, they have to lower their prices or they lose jobs, and that's just not fair. Right. So, you know, again, it's a very tough issue, and there's good and bad to each side for a small business owner.
I'd love for you to address that point, Hector. What do you do about that?
Well, you know, as been said, I think what needs to happen is that you can't be piecemealing this stuff together. You know, we tried a few years ago, in 2006, when I was back in Washington, to do something about immigration reform, and it failed. And it failed because there was a lack of support on both sides. What we knew is kicking the can down the road wasn't going to fix anything, and this is being manifested now. The problem is even worse, and it's going to get even worse if we don't start doing something about it. So, you know, unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to happen in this political environment this year. And I think depending on how the elections go, next year is not going to be any easier either. But we've got to come together and come up with a total solution and stop demagoguing it on both sides.
All right, Hector Barreto, we really appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us. And you two stick around. We've got more for you later in the show.